Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I am the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and of course, I'm here with
your co-host, Bonnie Snyder.
my co-host.
Woo!
Woo! And kind of see we have like some balloons on set today because
What?
year.
It is our 1 year anniversary.
I really can't believe it. December 3rd of last year was our first taping. And actually, it took John a while to talk me into doing this, but when we decided to say yes, we had like a month to get ready, and he's like, okay, our first taping is December 3rd. And I kind of took a big gulp because December 3rd is actually the anniversary of my first husband's death. And it was actually on December 3rd, it'll be 34 years ago that he was killed surveying on US 27. Yeah, so that's back in the early 80s, mid 80s.
Oh, I'm seeing the flash dance here. So that is definitely 80s.
Definitely 80s hair, but yeah, it'll be 34 years Friday. And really in all reality, that's kind of where all this really started. Because when he was killed, I was 26 years old, and I wanted to do something to bring awareness to. He was a land surveyor, and he was surveying on US 27, and actually Bobby was with him. They worked together. So I wanted to do something to bring awareness to the road workers, or the police officers or first responders that work on the side of the road, because people don't usually see them, or they get mad at them, and they honk at them, and all they're out there doing is their job and trying to make your commute better.
Exactly.
Plus they have families that they want to come home to, but I was never really able to do it. I was really young. I got so much pushback from the surveyors back in those days. I don't know why, but fast forward with 30 plus years later, and with Bobby, and now I can do it to help suicide loss survivors. Plus, the first time I gave a talk, actually on the 16th of November, which was Michael's birthday, and I, for the first time, incorporated that part of the story into our story. So it's like a long time coming, but kind of all ties together. But anyway, so a year. And of course, we have to thank John and WeBeam TV, because there is no way we would be here, without them. And like I said, it took 10 minutes of him in my ear. But, we wouldn't have been able to do it a day, let alone a year. And then plus, of course, we got Rob and then the boys, Dylan and Cage. We don't roll credits at the end of our show, so we got to thank them.
We do. I mean, the guys, they're here with us, every time we're in the studio, through, getting us mic'd up, making sure we look good, the little noises and, glitches, the technical glitches that happen on set sometimes. But you're right, we would not be able to do this without them, and blessed to have the platform, blessed to have the opportunity to do this,
Well, okay, Rob, to show the pictures, there's actually 3 other reasons we do this. One is Bobby, the other is Aiden, and Patrick. So that's why we do this, is for them.
It is. I mean, we use the stories, of Bobby, Aiden, and Patrick, in our experience through, through our personal losses, and the willingness that we have to put ourselves out there, on a weekly basis, and, the raw emotion, and for us, it's almost at times, can be a double-edged sword because, at one point we're talking about, we're bringing awareness to everybody as it relates to, not only dealing with a loss, but the epidemic, in itself, while at the same time grieving. Like it's interesting. It was funny when I walked, as we were getting ready to roll, and I forget who it was, and was like, "Don't look so happy," or
Oh yeah,
"Don't look so
Rob said
happy."
that.
And I think it was Rob. And I'm thinking to myself like, what is it? And as we're, we just got over Thanksgiving. We came back from that, and then we're getting ready to roll into Christmas, and I can't help. It's not that I'm in a bad mood or anything like that. At the same time, there is that awareness of how the holidays affect us, or people in our situations as it relates to losing, a loved one. And I remember, in our family, we have this tradition where, everybody goes around the table, we go around the table and everybody talks about what they're thankful for. And I was semi-taken aback, and I don't remember if I talked about this last week or not. No, because this is our first time back in the studio since the
we didn't
hot
tape
things.
last week.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't tape last week because and it would have been before Thanksgiving anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got to Devin, and Devin's like, I'm thankful for my family. The usual. The kids. He followed it up with, and I'm thankful for all of the love and support that I've gotten, since, losing my dad. And I didn't expect that to come out of his mouth, because usually when I look at the kids, sometimes I feel like they're being, kind of put on the spot. I don't know what I'm thankful for. But I got choked up behind that one. I was like, that he's really, and then, I think part of what I'm processing today is I'm, starting to see, and we talked about the grief cycles and everything. I'm starting to see some of his behaviors are manifesting, and, grapple with the fact that his dad's not here. And, I try really hard not to, what would your father say if you were here? Because I know that's,
Right.
Like his teachers
That's
would say
hard.
that.
Yeah.
It is. But, what Devin would say is it doesn't bother him, as if it's like me or a family member that says,
Right.
okay, we need to make Daddy proud. If it's a non-family member, it rubs him the wrong way. However, it's like, I don't like interjecting your dad in this. I said, at the same time, if Dad were here, and he'd like, I wouldn't be misbehaving. Okay, so let's pretend Daddy's right up there. Can we pretend Daddy's here? And, I said, let's think about, it's like, are you guilting him? Let's think about Daddy's legacy. But in the back of my head, it's like, processing, like on those two different levels, it's like, I understand, you're grieving too, and you haven't really, I don't think he's really ever allowed himself to process this.
Well, he was still pretty young.
He was 9.
Yeah.
He was 9. It was 2 years ago. He's 11 now. He was 9 when his daddy left. But again, as we are going through our own grieving, and then, with me having, Devin and, of course, Patrick's siblings, my other grandchildren, nieces and nephews, the family, grieving Pat, and at the same time we're grieving Aiden because,
And everybody's doing it differently.
Exactly. So again, it's really nice having this platform to, bring awareness, and, we use the word normalize, it's okay to talk about this, and, not only this, but, my friend, Laura, who, she lost her daughter, wasn't, a suicide, but with any loss, I mean, she lost her daughter shortly before I lost Pat, and she recently lost her husband. And so it's like, this Saturday, we have his celebration of life. And, so, where she and, like she and I have been tremendous sources of support for one another, her
Right.
through losing her daughter, and of course me, losing Pat, in addition to our other school friends, mind you. But, what I, hear from her, her and others like it, or like, her, this is it's a nice support, it is something that we can lose, or, I'll say lose yourself in. This show that we did, a couple of weeks ago to Sid, a couple of people from, that community, it's like, here's, our tribute to Sid.
Right.
They've like, I'm in tears, like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And it's like, we're just doing what we do.
Yeah, it's I'm glad that we're able to do this. I was glad when we got a couple months off during the summertime. I think it was kind of good for both of us because we do this every single week. But then coming back into it, and then again coming back into this time of year, as even like in November, both my husband's birthdays are a day apart. Then there's Lost Survivors Day. Then there's Thanksgiving, and this is all within like a week and a half, and then Christmas. And about 3 years ago, and it seems to get worse this time of year, but it was the first time that it really happened, and I didn't even realize it until the following spring. But this time of year, 3 years ago, I went into a really deep depression. Not a lot of people knew it because I could go out and do my stuff in the community and fake it really good. There was only a couple of people that really saw what was happening, and then there was one person who saw it but just was like, oh yeah, I could see that happening to you. And I'm like, why didn't you even reach out to me? Why didn't you say anything? And he's one person who's never really said anything at all since Bobby has passed. But probably about 5 months later, I was sitting watching TV just like aimlessly, and noticed what was happening to me. And my aunt ended up coming and staying with me for 3 weeks. And I've never been, even with the death of my first husband, never been like a depressed kind of person. Or Bobby would always say I looked at the world through rose-colored glasses, no matter what was going on.
Right, right.
And because I didn't have that even when I went through when Michael died. But then shortly after that, I had Bobby there, and to go through all that with me, and actually go through it with me because he was there when Michael was killed. And so when this started happening to me 3 years ago, and my aunt wanted me to go to a doctor and get put on meds and all that, and I've never believed in that. We never, even the whole time Bobby, since he had been diagnosed with MS, put him on conventional medication. I still to this day believe that if we would have back then, and even when he was first diagnosed, there was only one drug. And what the neurologist told us, it was like, why would I do that, you know? And so she said, she gave me 3 months to pull myself out of it myself, and which I did, but it's still a battle. And it's something that up until I was 54, probably until I was 56 years old, I never had an issue until this.
Sometimes when I hear you say, I've never had an issue, here goes that analytical side of me, It's not that I'm, diagnosing my co-host here. I often sit back and I wonder when, we say, I never had an issue. Was it we weren't having issues, or we, as a coping mechanism, managed to stuff what was going on, or whether subconsciously or consciously protect ourselves from all of that other, from that stuff. And I know I could speak, from myself from personal experience. I've had a professional friend, and then, I'm not opposed to acknowledging. I have no problem acknowledging. I've seen a therapist, several of them, throughout my lifetime, and especially with with Aiden and Pat. But I remember, years ago, someone telling me, "You are a master internalizer," and I wasn't in the field then. I don't think I really, was even, because I was probably in my 20s, and I'm looking at her, and I had a lot of respect for her, trusted her, but she said, "You are a master internalizer." And it took me, a while, for her, she explained to me what she was talking about. Well, fast forward to today, well, I'm in the field. And, of course, when I process it in my own head, all right, I have to be cautious, or conscious, I should say, cautious and conscious of not stuffing or internalizing, allowing for the process to happen. And, it becomes one of those double-edged sword kind of things. It's like, I'm in mental health. Why, why, how come, I shouldn't be experiencing, this negative. I shouldn't be.
You're still a human person, just besides that.
Precisely.
What you do for a living, or your profession, isn't just you.
Exactly. And this is what, this one woman, the doctor I see now, her name is, I think I can say her name. Her name is Nikki. And, I look at her sometimes and I was like, I know this stuff. And it's, I don't want to call it a joke, again, it is that, double-edged sword where, well, I know this, and because I know it, I have this understanding of it, on the other side of the sword. And, it's like, this is why, some people wouldn't, have the instinct to, something's amiss, let me pick up the phone and call somebody. Mm-hmm. Something's wrong, let me, reach out for help. I need to go see somebody. And, being a veteran as well, for Leslie, guys, I got you guys on speed dial. I know how to, hit those buttons and call. But I also, getting, flipping back to that professional side, taking the stigma out of, asking for help, recognizing that you have help or that you need help. While at the same time, developing those skills that, are I guess I want to call it a defense mechanism, or a defense that, am I not feeling anything, or am I not allowing myself to feel anything? And if I'm not allowing myself to feel anything, why not? What's the reason? And I get it for some people, and I think of, recent losses, that we've had. Several people I'm not ready to process this. I'm not ready to deal with that. And of course the response is, take your time. When you're ready, mm-hmm. you will be ready. At the same time, take your time, but also make sure that you're not ignoring, what's going on, or you're not allowing a bit of the process to happen, because that in itself is, not healthy.
Oh, no, it's not. And the thing is, too, that internalizing all that stuff you don't realize how big of a not only a mental toll it takes on you, but a physical toll that it takes on you. I remember not long after Michael was killed, and it was really weird. It was probably several months later, maybe a few months later. All of a sudden, my face started breaking out in these almost dime size, almost like just the skin disappeared all over my face. And I never really had any issues, or issues, there's that word again, any problem, facial, besides the regular teenage stuff. But just all of a sudden, it was boom. And a couple months later, I needed to have a wisdom tooth out. And, the dentist refused to take out my tooth because I was under too much stress.
I can see that. With me, mine is manifested into I've gained about 30 pounds. And I looked at them and I was like, really, Bonnie? Like, like what's going on here?
But people got to remember too, you got to give yourself a break.
Yeah.
You're going through it now, whether it's what we're going through or any kind of loss. You've got to give yourself a break. You can't be too hard on yourself. I kind of do that to myself sometimes, and my neighbor kind of reins me back in and is like, because I feel sometimes like I haven't done enough, and she'll rein me back in and she says, Tammy, look what you've done. Look, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess, but, and then you got to be careful not to do too much, because then you're back in the same position. So it's a really kind of a fine balancing act on both sides.
It can be. Yeah, and I'm with you in terms of, am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? For me, becoming, a parent to a child, like a child again. I mean, it's one thing, for me to be a parent to, grown folks. Even I do where I love, I wouldn't trade being a grandparent for anything in the world. And I said, my grandchildren do not call me grandma. It's, but I love being Nana. And, I used to joke about, I'm a Nana now. I can spoil the kids and send them back home.
Right.
Because I've had my time. I've done my time. I've done my parenting time. Now it's like, there's been like a reset button to where now I'm a parent, again to, all right, I've got, an 11-year-old. Well, it started when he was 9, mind you. But now I have an 11-year-old, two 11-year-olds. So my daughter's little boy is with us as well. I think I have jokingly talked about the dynamic duo. But it's like, wow, I have two 11-year-olds, that I'm raising. So it was like, I have another, like 7 years before they're 18. And I'm not saying I don't, kick my kids to the curb when they're 18. I have some friends' house, 18, poof, you're up the house, go. I've never subscribed to that. I mean, let's look at that. Patrick was 33, still lived at home, when I lost him. And, every once in a while, he would say, I'm moving out. I'm like, all right, I'll believe it when it happens. And I don't say that to her, I'll believe it when it happens, meaning that I want you out of my house. Now, granted, we did go, I'm kind of glad to be in my house by myself. And, he was like, oh, I'm kind of glad to be in my own spot. But at the same time, we'd be like, but we're really awesome roommates, and he was an awesome roommate. But now it's like, I can't spoil these kids and send them back back to a parent because, I'm the full-time parent now. And, mind you, it's not that I'm doing it, totally by myself. 'Cause my daughter and I share responsibilities, and the second 11-year-old is her, is her child. We do which one of us is dad today? And sometimes I think she's more the if you think of like disciplinarian in the house or whatnot, where there are times that, she's more the, I'm going to wait till your father gets home, that kind of thing. That she's more that role where, I'm the, all right, let's talk about this. But then my kids are like, do you really know what you're getting into? Because Nana's not, I was like, she raised me. I know how she is. She's strict. I'm like, yeah, I kind of eased up a little bit being a Nana. But the skills have to come back now. Because I'm not just Nana
Well,
anymore.
especially as they start to get older and into the teenage years. Oh my gosh.
I'm already experiencing that.
Already at 11.
Yes. Yes, they're 11. It's like they're giving me a jump start on teenage years. But I mean, they're good kids. They're good kids.
Well, they're lucky to be able to have you to be able to do that.
Well, I would say, true. But again, I would be, remiss if I didn't, say that, it is truly, a collaborative effort between my daughter and I.
Right.
My oldest son, he's, back still in the Midwest. But as far as like here in Florida, it is very much a collaborative effort between my daughter and I.
Well, it kind of has to be these days, It's just like, when we talk about even just, like, it's kind of like when we talk about our organization, we can't do this by ourselves.
Correct.
And, these days, it's probably the same with raising kids. You cannot do it by yourself, You need a collaborative effort. And that's kind of, that's what we're really encouraging in our community more and more, is to get other smaller nonprofits, organizations like ours to work together. Everybody's got to work together.
Yeah, I think everybody, working together and bringing something to the table, because everybody has a different, I look at it as either putting a puzzle together or I think probably more, metaphorically, a slice of the pie, and it's, our organization, is one slice, and our focus is on this. Well, another organization might be, here's this slice, and the whole pie dish is we're all trying to address, this issue of, loss and, loss survivors, and how do we deal with, everything that it encompasses. When you're, you mentioned, we started this piece of conversation off on, everybody working together. My brain is sitting here thinking, like, we kind of went a little off sync today because, it's like, well, along with this, like, we have our sponsors, having, I'm thinking, you're right, having our kindness page and, giving people the ability to, help support the show. 50 cents to, 25 grand or more. I mean, you don't have to stop at 25 grand.
No, we would really, and mind you, we have done this for a year with minimal sponsorship.
Yes.
Minimal sponsorship. We did get the Hilton Garden Inn to do sponsor a couple shows. So, Art for Hope has kind of been a long drawn out thing, and at that hotel we have 3 of the artists that I represent for my gallery. Their work hangs out there, and it's all for sale. We're kind of decorating the place for free so that we have a bigger showcase. And I went out there and we put our little Art for Hope cards on there with a QR code. And what I'm going to do is, because things just didn't, really fall together the way we really wanted to, and that's what happens when you're going through this grieving process. Something's going to stop you at some point to not be able to do some of the things you want, and you can't be hard on yourself for that happening, because it's kind of, your body and your mind's way, or the man above saying you need to slow it down and back up a little bit. Otherwise, somebody's going to throw you in the loony bin, you know.
Well, I mean, we have to take into consideration too, along with that, we have, and are still, dealing with this pandemic.
Yeah.
And so, when you take, loss and, the dealing with the loss itself, okay, now we've got this platform, and then on, here comes this pandemic that shuts everything down. It's like, okay, so, things that we would have done, this way, we had to do, like, I want to do this, but I have to do it virtually now. I wanted to do this in, how do you do a art show, virtually, because I know, you're the artist, I'm not. But I'm sure you would agree, when I look at a piece of art, looking at it, a picture of the art piece does not do it justice as looking at the actual piece itself. Because we've shown, like when we had the Hope Rains Down, when we had it in the studio, looking at the show afterwards, and I was like, it does the studio does not do it, or the image that you people are seeing on TV does not do that piece justice.
Or even the pieces that we put on a website, it really doesn't. So that's why the art out at the hotel, I'm keeping those cards up, because really I never even got them on the website yet, but they will be really soon. So I'm just kind of like keeping Art for Hope, like dragging out there, not making it like a specific thing. This year was supposed to be is our 4th annual, and we're keeping it that way. But we only had 2 events in person, the first and the second one, and this is our 4th one. So half of our major fundraisers have had to be virtual, and it makes it hard. And we were going to do a live auction here in the studio on the 17th. And I thought it was a really great idea, like 2 months prior to that. But the closer it got to that date, it was like I was freaking out because it was Bobby's birthday, and I thought, that would be the great day to have it. But then our producer's wife lost her brother to cancer like the week before that, and I was just like, we can't do this. We just can't put all that pressure on all of us. It's not worth our sanity and our health. And so we didn't do that. We are going to try and figure something else out, because we have the door that my nieces made actually for the 3rd annual Art for Hope. We still have that we want to auction off. And then I was going to bring it today, and I forgot. We got a piece from a guy that I went to high school with, and it's his artwork on metal. It's really cool. It's not a large piece. It's a little bit smaller than yours, like 16 by 20. Very colorful, of a turtle, which is like very, Florida kind of like stuff. It's a really neat piece. And so I'd like to at least figure out how to auction those 2 items off sometime during the year before next year, hopefully in September, our in-person 5th annual Art for Hope. And we have some cool pieces that the gallery is collecting for that event. So hopefully, can't make any promises, keep my head on straight, we can get some of that stuff up for preview ahead of time next year. But it's, we still don't know what's going to happen, with the pandemic. And, it's pretty much open and a free-for-all here in Florida. I don't really see that changing much, but we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, we also have our T-shirts.
Our T-shirts.
I love our T-shirts.
And I haven't gone on the website yet, but she is, the gal who does this for us is working on different T-shirt options with the same images, you know, like colors, or maybe like this time of year, I love long sleeve T-shirts. So I need to check on that. I haven't, but they're still available, and you can order them from the website there with that QR code. And it doesn't, you know, you could live anywhere in the United States and they'll ship them to you. And if you live locally, you can go down to Gulfside Custom T-shirts on Ridge Road, and they'll let you know when they're ready, and you can just go pick them up. Or I still have inventory at the foundation office, so we have those too. We had an event at Slice of Life on the 18th. Reuters did a little fundraiser, and it turned out really pretty nice. Happened to be the same night as your event, and but it turned out pretty nice, and we sold a couple T-shirts there also. So that was good, and raised a little bit of money for the foundation. So that was good, and that kind of made that dropping the event on Bobby's birthday made that week a little bit easier, because I had to give a talk in Seminole the day before, and then I knew we were having the other fundraiser at Slice of Life, and I was like, it gives me like a little bit of breathing room.
Well, you know, we forgot to mention, as we're talking about all the events that happens around, whether, albeit, suicide loss or just loss in general. You know, a lot of this kicked off with the Out of Darkness walk. Mm-hmm. We had, that going on, which, I enjoy working that event, for a couple of different reasons. Of course, for me, it's one of those where I've worked this event for, how many years, until, like 2 years ago, it's like someone would have told me that I could take one of those buttons that says I'm walking for and put, Aiden's name or Patrick's name, or, Sid's name on one of those buttons. I'd have been like, no, absolutely not. And of course that that followed with the Nope Candlelight Vigil. We just did that. For those of you who don't know, it's narcotics overdose prevention and education. And, unfortunately, this one was virtual as well. For me, some of these events being virtual, I have a love-hate relationship with virtual. The love side of it is, people aren't restricted in terms of being able to attend the event. Right. We did one virtual event. We had somebody from Kenya had logged in, and we're like, "Where are you from?" This guy says Kenya, and we're like, "Whoa," So so that was exciting. Our keynote speaker for Nope, a gentleman Ryan Hampton, he. Don't get me. I don't want to lie about where he's from. I don't know why I'm thinking California, but I could be wrong. I think I'm wrong. But he was not. He was out of state, and he zoomed in and did the keynote speech. I was honored to be one of the featured speakers during this event. But yeah, it is.
And I don't know if you got my text. I don't know if it was later that night or the next day. I was watching the news, 11 o'clock news, and one of the stations featured your guys' event, and they had a picture of the Zoom, and you were on TV.
Yeah, and you did text me that, and I was like, what?
I was watching the news, and I'm like, oh, that's Bonnie's event. Because I couldn't be there because my event was going.
You were going to some event,
and so I was looking at it, and I was like, oh, there's Bonnie.
Yeah, no, it's just things like that between, this platform,
Well, and too, always the Saturday before Thanksgiving is Suicide Loss Survivors Day. And which typically events are held throughout the United States. This year it was virtual again. So it was, for us, it was the state of Florida together on that Zoom. And, you know, it was a couple hours. So, and that's every year this time of year too. So it just, everything starts. And actually prior to our walk was the St. Pete Walk in October. And coming up real soon is the Tampa Walk in December. So
It just seems, you know, to me, October, November, December, you have all of these events, you know, the Out of Darkness Walk, you know, Suicide Loss Survivors, you know, the Nope Vigil, you know, and, you know, it's interesting that they all tend, you know, to also coincide with the holidays. And, you know, I don't know if that was intentional to take people's mind off of it, because it's like, okay, if we're doing, you know, Lost Survivors, and it is right before Thanksgiving, well, you back and think about it. Most people, or I say most, but, you know, many people really feel the loss around the holidays. I noticed, I also, there was an event that happened where it was like an empty chair, you know, just like an empty chair at the dinner table. But there was also a, you'd put a lawn chair out, you know, out in your lawn with, you know, like the sign. And, you know, it was to bring awareness to, you know, people who were lost to, you know, to overdose. And, you know, I was like, I had to do this. I really had to do this, you know, in honor of Patrick. You know, at the same time, it's like, oh, my HOA is really not going to be, you know, I'm like, but wait a minute, you know, would my you know, I started, you know, and part of me was like, I'm going to ask the HOA, like, you know, hey, when events like this happens, you know, like, you know, the, what is it, the Blue Bulb for Autism? Is it the Blue Bulb for Autism? You know, and you have like these different colored bulbs for, you know, different kinds of awareness. Well, are you going to say something about my bulb? Probably not. You know, I was like, that's restricted. But I think it's, you know, it is important for communities to, you know, develop an awareness and promote, you know, these events that talks about, you know, an epidemic, an issue that there is no community that's immune.
yeah, and that's absolutely true. Do you think, you know, I don't live in a community that has an HOA. I
Lucky
live
you.
more in the country. That was intentional.
Lucky you.
But like the signs for the Out of the Darkness Walk, would you be able to even put those up?
You know, that's a good question, because, you know, some, yeah, I'm not bagging on my HOA. I'm not. Not bagging on my HOA. You know, I know in our community, like, there's, you know, soliciting, like, what was it? One of our board members, you know, we were, you know, chit-chatting, you know, we kind of have a kind of relationship. But, like, she'd voted, and she put her political sign in her front lawn, you know, basically, you know, showing her, you know, hey, I voted. I'm proud I voted,
Right.
and here's who I voted for. And mind you, she's one of the board members. Somebody complained to the HOA office.
Oh, really?
And, you know, about, you know, this political sign.
Right.
And, you know, so it's like, yeah, there's just certain things that we have to ask permission for. You know, I don't know. That is a good question. You know, those of us that live in, you know, deed restricted areas, can I put, you know, a chair in my front lawn that has a poster that says, you know, this is bringing awareness to this?
Right.
Because I know in our community, with the exception of like the sheriff's department, and it's some people have kind of made this controversial a bit, but if I bring my neighbor, you know, who's also my best friend, when he comes home, you know, he's a supervisor, so he brings his work truck home, he has to put magnets on his truck to hide the markings for his truck.
Wow.
That it's,
Yeah.
and he works for, I'm not going to name the city, but he works for a city municipality.
Right.
And, one of their utilities departments. But when he comes home, he has to cover up the
that's-
signs
yeah. See,
for his work truck. Because having your work truck,
right.
you can't have your work vehicle in your
Right,
in your-
and with most HOAs, that's the way it is. I think that's why my father-in-law, when Bobby and I were looking to move up here, he only took us to the area where we ended up buying our home, because we didn't have. Actually, we had an HOA, but it was, back then the demographics were even way older than what it is now, especially in the area that I lived in. Like, I went to a couple of the HOA meetings, and I was 30, and they were 80. And I think within a year, it was totally dissolved. We don't have anything. But that was one of the reasons why my father-in-law, that was the area that he took us to look for a home. So we didn't have to deal with that. And I don't think I could live in an area that way anyways, because that's not how I grew up. One of my cousins came to visit, and she was visiting another cousin down around Bradenton, and she made a comment. She says, it's really kind of funny. You two bought homes, more from Washington State, in Florida, so similar to how you grew up. We had, an acre of land, and, our houses weren't really close together and stuff. And I was like, oh, really? I says, yeah, that is kind of weird. But, and so I couldn't do that. I need the freedom and the space.
Like I say, I have a love-hate relationship with HOAs. I understand why, I understand the theory behind them, but at the same time, it's like...
Well, and I do too, because we went through a few years, our neighbors across the street ended up losing their property, and our neighborhood used to be like the place to live, and everybody took care of it, even though it was more rural. But and then probably around 2008, when everything crashed, people sold their homes, made money, new people moved in, and you could see things kind of change. And my neighbor jokes around that we now live in Moon Lake South. And this is like, used to be when we first moved up here, they called it the Redneck Riviera.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah, we went down a rabbit hole there. Down the HOA rabbit hole.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about our Purple Folder program, because, we show the Purple Folder, the outside of it, but we very rarely, show the inside of it and talk a little bit about that. But I've added to this, and when we go out and do events now, we didn't have it in the last events that we did together, but there's this seed company. It's American Seed Company. I don't remember. Anyways, they do these little seed packets, and you can put your logo over their logo. And some people do it for like what we're doing it for, or to give out at funerals, or something. I thought it was really kind of a cool idea to have, like when we go do events, that we can give these out to people, and it's the Forget-Me-Not.
Oh, I love it.
So here's your first 2 packets.
Oh, thank you.
So I went and I put the logo on it, so when we do events, we have these available at our tables.
Nice.
But I also put it on the inside
Oh, I love that.
of our folder. And you can see that. So that's the inside of the folder. And this flyer here we just had these redone, and I want to send some of these out to Kira. It's how to talk about suicide, and there's a couple other links in there and stuff. Just, I guess it's because we have done this for a year and we've lived it, but there's still people that don't know how to talk, or when they do, they use the wrong verbiage, and it kind of, I don't know if it does for you, but especially when somebody says commit suicide, and
Yes.
that cuts to my core every time.
And I don't know about you, but I find myself a lot of times when I hear someone say they committed suicide, and as they're talking, I don't, I don't like do the rude interruption.
Right, yeah, I don't either.
But like I said, I was talking to somebody, and they're like, oh, they committed suicide, and I was like, died by suicide. And they're still talking. I was like, oh, it's like died by suicide. It's just kind of very subtle. And then finally they're like, what did you say? And I was like, it is, I said, it is died by suicide. And, and I explained to them, we're trying to take the stigma out of it and, change the language. And not just, and it's not just, committed suicide to died by suicide. It's,
There's a lot, yeah.
like drug addict, a person suffering from, the disease of addiction. Dirty UA to, or a positive UA to, we have one of the agencies that I work with, we had a card printed that says, instead of saying this, say this, and the idea to take the stigma
Right.
out of.
And on the back of this flyer, there's like half a dozen or more, what do you call it? Phrases. Problematic and preferred.
Yes.
So we have that. And then there's a letter in here from me with, our contact information. And then actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2, 12 pages of information. And then I added our card for
For the
our show. So this is how we'll be sending these out, but I did want to make sure that, and I have Kira's address, send some of these out to.
I need to grab some of those for the contact that asked me for them as well.
Okay.
For our community
Well, and you
partners.
should probably, along with Delynn even mentioned, I should have a couple of these with me, and I'm like, yeah, you should. You're on the board.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you probably should too. So we'll get those to you guys. So did we cover our sponsors?
And it's our 1 year
And it's our
anniversary.
1 year anniversary. It's have to go back and look at the first couple that we did and see have we grown? Have we gotten,
We're still, I think like this, we're still unscripted. We're still, what do I want to use? You never know what to expect. I think for me, as I think about, as we're rolling into, our second year of doing this, I feel, we have grown, we have brought, an important message, to people. We've made it okay to talk about, suicide loss and loss survivors and whatnot. I foresee us, getting back to the book reviews.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do that. And there's there's a program that I kind of want to get started. You and I need to talk about, and we've got starting to get a lineup of some really awesome guests that, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, what we're doing, our organization and our show can't do alone. This is way bigger than any of us. And it's more complex and complicated than you would ever think. So we're really starting to align with other smaller nonprofits that have the similar mindset that we have to talk and to help and to be people in the community that are being the voice.
Yeah, I mean, having the ability to bring it to, a larger audience because, as we look at the other, organizations that do this along with us, this organization, is going to reach this population. This organization is going to reach this, this population. And having us all work together, it's like, oh, they may hear something from us that they might not have heard.
Well, it's combining resources.
Exactly.
And that's the one thing that was the big issue in the beginning, for me, was finding resources. And that's what we're all trying to do and work together. So I brought these little teeny nice little bottles of champagne.
And along with that, and before, we hit the champagne and we go down to these, last few seconds that we have, don't forget about the crisis lines. If
Please.
you know somebody who's in crisis, put them in your phone. Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody, whether it is for yourself or someone else, because that very thing you do might save a life. But yes,
Most
as we,
definitely.
our little bottles of champagne. So, I don't know, should we?
What the heck?
What the heck?
I don't know if I can open wine. Yeah,
There
here
we
we
go.
go.
So,
Cheers
here's to 1
year.
year.
And remember, there's always hope. Thanks.